Well, I want to talk about audio quality, and actually, some of the interlude music we've been hearing already is a very good example of what I'm talking about. So I'm actually going to do a random thing and start. Kurt, Rich, could we just put that tune on for a second? So I just thought it might be a nice idea to put some good audio quality on. And whack it up a bit. Thank you very much. Okay. So it's been said that if bad sound was lethal, it would be a leading cause of death. And what it's saying is that sound quality is not, and our sense of hearing is not given the attention it deserves. It's underrated. It's regarded as secondary to sight. You've only got to look at the bad acoustics of public spaces, the horrible things that architects and interior designers do without any regard to the acoustic properties, which of course are so intrinsic to the ambience of a place. It's not even realized how badly a child's education is affected by the atrocious quality of the average school classroom. And even in club world, it's extremely unusual for the acoustic properties of the space that tens of thousands of watts of audio is going to be put into, is given due care and attention. So I'd just like to contrast hearing and sight for a moment. Sight can only look forward. Hearing is appreciated from every direction. Hearing never switches off, it's always on. You can so easily shut your eyes. And there's another thing about sight, which is only one octave, which is the rainbow, and audio can cover 10 octaves. It's also about 2,000 times more accurate than the sense of sight in terms of the separate speed of events it can discern. So this general, it's just not appreciated how this amazing sense strongly affects our mood and our demeanor. And sadly, this general disregard for audio has crept into music and its production. So I want to examine where we are, how we got here, what it's limiting, and maybe what we can do about it, not necessarily in that order. So my biggest problem is the dumbing down of audio, because that is preventing us from appreciating music's full potential. The fantastic transportation of your mind, the depth of emotion and feeling that you can have with music. All these things are shut out from us by bad quality. So a lot of this has actually, I mean, it's never been great, believe me, but it's really got worse since the advent of digital. With digital, we've got completely inadequate sound files, bad sound cards, rubbishy digital to analog converters, analog to digital converters. So, and on top of that, we have almost an indifference to gain structure on the part of many people, particularly DJs. And I'm just wondering, Rich, if you would do the sort of thing that happens to a sound when it's overloaded. So if I was going to be talking like this all night, it wouldn't be much fun, would it? But the number of mixers that I've seen flat out in the red in my time is beyond belief. And we're talking people who were paying huge amounts of money. Can you please stop it, because it's just horrible. I think we make the point. Thank you. It's not that I'm against digital sound. In fact, digital can be much better than analog because we don't have the hiss and the quite nice, but you know, the pops and clicks of vinyl. So it can actually be better. But the thing is, it's very much more complicated than analog, and there's so many different processes and specialized bits of equipment that most of the time it's going wrong. So what do we have to be mindful of to try and get it right? Well, first thing to understand is that a sound system is a chain of events, and it's only as good, as it's always been said for years, as the weakest component. Imagine your chain of events is a series of windows, and you're looking at a scene. You only need one dirty window to completely destroy your clarity of view. And I'm afraid this is how it is in audio. And if you don't have a good reference, it's very hard to evaluate the sonic integrity of any particular piece of equipment, because the shortcomings of one piece will mask the performance of another's. So let's start with the original microphone input or sample. It obviously needs to be clean, at the right level, and of sufficient resolution to capture all the very low-level harmonics that give a sound its richness and its character. And some of those things, I mean, I'll talk technical for a second, they can be as much as 30 dB down, which basically means incredibly quiet. But remember, we've got an incredible audio system in this head, and it picks all this stuff up, whether you are conscious of it or not. So, obviously, let's not use a web download, because I think this picture speaks the language I'm talking about. The WAV file, even CD quality, is reasonably sufficient. This is actually the audio, the MP3. It's 7 and 9 actually. That's what an MP3 audio is like. It's actually that bad. And download, I mean, YouTube and all the rest of it is great for auditioning things or perhaps finding something you like. But please don't let's be using it in our professional world. They were born out of the early limitations of the internet, i.e. low bandwidth and expensive storage. Those days are long behind us. They're a very unnecessary bad habit. And for heaven's sake, let's abandon the damn things. They're dreadful. And just while we're on this subject, thank you. I mean, we're not particularly scientists, but there's this thing about MP3s, which is a 320 kilobits per second is supposed to be high quality. Well, a CD, audio resolution is normally measured in sample rate and bit depth. But when it comes to MP3s, we don't talk about that because it would be, well, I mean, it'd be hardly anything to talk about. So it's measured in kilobits per second, and a so-called high quality is 320. A CD is actually 1440 kilobits per second, and to pay proper respect to human hearing, it looks like we need about a minimum of 96 kilohertz per second and a bit depth of about 24. This actually translates to, if I get this right, 4,608 kilobits per second. Now compare 4,608 with 320, the maths is dead easy. It's about 7%. So basically they are a complete and utter insult to what God has given us. Thank you. So in digital hardware, what sort of problems do we get there? Well, again, we get bad converters. That's pretty standard, actually. We get inaccurate mathematics. We get badly chosen algorithms. We get jittery clocks. It's a nightmare. And unless they're all right, digital really isn't worth playing. You're better off with a valve amplifier, frankly. But there is an issue with digital, and that's to do with timing or latency. And different digital processes take a different amount of time. And this difference in time is actually incredibly small. But the human hearing is actually capable of discerning separate events as down 15 to 20 millionths of a second. So if the space between them is longer than that, the auditory system will realise it. If you've ever listened to digital and thought, my God, there's something wrong with it. I can't put my finger on it. I don't quite know what it is. It's probably this mashed up timing. And when the brain receives this mixed up timing, it gets confused. It disengages spatially and emotionally. It really doesn't want to go there. And I think the picture kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. It's like a misregistered coloured print. And we are capable of hearing it, and we do. And it's not audio anymore, it's noise. So, software mixers, sequencers, and file players actually have a lot of the same problems as the hardware. And you can be pretty sure that if you overuse plugins, they're going to mash up the sound even more. And an awful lot of these programs have auto-limiting and auto-gain, strange EQs in a standard. Go into global preferences, get rid of them. Because every one of these things means another layer of processing. And you'll be amazed at how much better the sound quality is. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but it will be better. So, getting to the final mix. Please, let's not overcompress everything. We've all heard about the loudness wars, and it was great to see Dynamic Range Day a few weeks ago, which is an initiative against this complete nonsense. About 4 or 5 years ago, it's self-explanatory, isn't it? There was a great house track that I actually thought, I'm going to get the CD. So I bought it. It sounded terrible. I got another one thinking it was a pirated copy. It was just as bad. So I had a look at the waveform. And you can see here, it's actually flattened off at the top. When I looked at the meters, it was 0.1 of a dB within an inch of its life. Now, there's just everything's crushed to the roof. This to even show you, because it was a solid wall, I had to expand it to even show this. But you can see all the tops of everything are knocked off. And the thing is, when you get these square things, it's a square wave, and they're one of the most obnoxious sounds you can ever hear. So the whole track was ruined by this clicky, nasty sound. And the one at the bottom, it's got a bit of room to breathe. And the thing is, all this destruction, just so we can be louder than the next person's track on the radio. When, after all, if you want it louder, there's a volume control within reach normally. So it's complete rubbish. So, okay, and there's another thing that happens with all the final mixes, and I would call it, if you like, spectral or tonal imbalance. Now, human hearing is not equally sensitive to all frequencies. In fact, it's most sensitive at around 4 kilohertz, which I guess you could call high-mid. And it's the place where the S's and the T and the K and all the definition frequencies are. And it's also where a baby's scream is centered. So it is a very attention-grabbing frequency. So it's kind of natural to try and mix everything into it. But what you finish up with is a shrieky, shrill sound, which is actually quite offensive. And I just can't believe it sometimes, actually. I do carry earplugs, it's very necessary. But if you were to translate that to a colour print, it would be like it's overemphasised with blue, and we've completely forgotten about the yellows and the greens. And I'm afraid this is taken as normal, and it's rife throughout the business, not just in DJ world, but live sound is just appalling. I won't necessarily get into that, even though I've been making loudspeakers for about 42 years now. We'll leave that one alone, I reckon. This is more important. So there are more ways of corrupting audio than we've actually got time to discuss. But it all boils down to one horrible word: distortion. And distortion drives you, well, distortion could be thought of as a twisting of truth. And truth twisted is lies, and nobody wants to listen to lies. So we're no longer deeply involved at listening, we're just superficially hearing. And the real essence of what all this is supposed... We've only had big audio for 50 years, not even that. And I'm here because I'm absolutely fed up with seeing it go down the drain. It's being wasted. Everything that humanity gets that's good finds a way to turn it upside down. When are we ever going to learn? Thank you. There's a guy called Daniel Levitin, and he's in Canada, and he's written Your Brain on Music and the World in 6 Songs. He's a professor of psychology and neurosciences. And he said that music stimulates more parts of your brain than just about any other known kind of input. And furthermore, he's also said that when somebody's listening to music they don't like, you get the fight or flight hormone, adrenaline, released. And when you're listening to music you do like, the reward hormone, dopamine, is released. And I would suggest that this also extends to true audio and distortion. Distortion is square wave, it's nasty, it produces adrenaline. So humans are very adaptable. He's telling me I'm running out of time, but I won't stop. Because I'm here now. Thank you. So humans, as we know, are incredibly adaptable. That's how we all get. So we get to be where we are. But I'm sad to see that recent generations have never heard crystalline, transparent high frequencies. What they have heard can only be called audio sandpaper. The thing is, we've adapted to it. We think that's what it's supposed to be. It's not. And the whole music business is now infected with this. And this substandard audio demeans our musical culture terribly. So if you wish to redefine the DJ, then how about guardians of our audio soundscape consciousness arena? It may be... So I've gone about the sorry... I got it wrong there. Sorry state of 21st century audio. It's bad. Why does it matter? The world seems quite happy with it. Well, I've got to say that for me, the infinite space that opens up inside my mind, and I'm sure many others, when they're really tuning into good stereo material, is what is so attractive here. And bad quality sound and cannot do this because you need every link in the chain to be of sufficient resolution to reconstruct these stereo images. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to get there. Imagine being in a looking at a picture of a lovely landscape, and it's all fuzzy, and then actually being in it, That's the difference as far as I'm concerned. Involvement in multidimensional audio is transcendent. And this is borne out by the fact that people who are listening to music deeply have the same brainwave patterns as somebody meditating, like a Buddhist monk. This is a fact. And so but the thing about meditation is it's quite often an individual experience, whereas listening to music is communal. And I would suggest that when we've had a magic audio moment, a really good gig, or a wonderful dance floor experience, it's not just because of the music and your involvement in it, it's the fact that we're starting to connect with other people in the same dimension. That's what makes it magic, and that's why this is so precious, and that's why I'm feeling so strong about it. It's so important because it may be a door to an incredibly badly needed new state of being that we need on Earth as soon as possible. So, a lot of these, I've been talking about audio quality, but actually I find a lot of the same concepts apply to music. And my personal taste is for harmonic, tuneful, key-changing, rhythmically satisfying, uplifting music. I believe that music is an expression of the structure and architecture of the universe. So I do not do darkness and chaos. The harmonic arrangements of everything from atomic particles to the planets and the harmony of musical scales illustrate this. A natural attraction to harmony and aversion to discord stems from our sense of and our connectedness with the universe. Natural rhythms such as heartbeat, breathing, day and night, and the cycles of the seasons are all steady and life-affirming. Unlike some of today's rhythms, which if translated to a person's heartbeat would probably hospitalize them. So, so even with brilliant audio, discord, disjointed rhythms, and distorted sounds will tend to release the dealing with stress hormone, adrenaline. This means that there may well be more musical adrenaline junkies in today's world than there were at the beginnings of house music in the 1980s. This music is of that time really did have all the dopamine releasing requirements, satisfying rhythm, melody, key changes, etc. This not only gave us enormous accessible fun, but the huge possibilities of communal consciousness. The universe is all vibration, and music is part of the great dance of frequencies. Tune into their deepest meaning, and music might just save the world. Thank you.